Thank you, Comrade Mike. Amandla! Viva ARETA, viva!
Viva!
Viva ARETA, viva!
Viva!
Viva ARETA, viva! A luta continua. Thank you, Comrade Mike, our Provincial Secretary. Also thanks to Dr. Job Mohanedi, who I know very well. And as Comrade Job quite correctly said, he's got a long history in the liberation struggle. I remember him from the days when he and other comrades were providing security for the leadership of the African National Congress just after the ANC was unbanned. And as Comrade Job says, then most of the members of Umkhonto we Sizwe were still in exile. They were still coming back from the camps where they were in Angola, in Uganda, and in many other parts of Southern Africa. Comrades, it is my honor to be here today in Phola Park, here in Ward 53. I am happy that I can be here also one day after the 16th of June, where yesterday ARETA went to Soweto, to the Morris Isaacson School, and we held an event there and we marched from Morris Isaacson School to the Hector Peterson Museum. That is 4 kilometers. You can see today, Comrade Mike and I'm walking a little bit difficult. We are not any longer that young. But the young people marched with us. That very important route, where the young people on the 16th of June 1976 marched to express their opposition to apartheid and marched against the use of Afrikaans as a language of instruction in our schools. We recalled yesterday how those young people came in peace. I remembered and I spoke about an interview that Chichi Mashinini gave, where he said, we were marching in peace, but we saw suddenly the armored vehicles and the police and the soldiers arrived. And when we thought that they were going to talk to us, they suddenly started shooting. And I can still, he said, hear those gunshots reverberating in my head. And I saw how Hector Peterson fell and died. So we recalled yesterday the suffering and also the sacrifices that the young people of 1976 made for our liberation. As we arrived at the Hector Peterson Museum, and right outside where Madiba in 1992 opened that precinct in front of the museum, we laid a wreath on behalf of the African Radical Economic Transformation Alliance. I made a short speech there, comrades. And what I did in the middle of my speech was to go on my knees in front of that monument and to say, we as the older generation, also those of us who've been in the African National Congress for many decades, must apologize because we have failed the youth of our country. Dr. Mohanedi spoke about unemployment. I'm sure if we ask you who are sitting here as young people, and most of the people here in this hall today are young people. If I ask you to put up your hands, how many of you are employed? Is there anyone who can put up your hand to say that you are employed? No one. You see, that is the tragedy of our country. Young people who hope for a better life, who hope that they can have their education to work for them so that they can get jobs, that they can take care of their families, make sure that there's food on the table and that their mothers who have taken care of them can have a better life, don't have jobs. Young people today are saying we don't see a light at the end of this dark tunnel for ourselves. They become despondent. Young people say we don't know how to make a future. We will just drown our sorrows in alcohol and we will get involved in drugs because we don't know how to move forward. That's why, comrades, I went down on my knees in front of that monument dedicated there to Hector Peterson. And I said, we as an older generation, and also as those who've been in the African National Congress for many decades, must sincerely apologize to the young people of this country. We have failed you. And today I want to say that same apology to you as young people. Please accept our sincere and unconditional apology that we have failed you. Because today, 30 years after the African National Congress was first voted to become the governing party in this country on the 27th of April 1994, you are living in this terrible situation. You are unemployed. You don't know where the next meal is going to come from. You are battling from day to day, just simply to survive. We have failed you, and we have failed you dismally. But comrades, that is not where the story must end. Acknowledgement of failure must mean that we must commit ourselves to change the future, to make sure that we will give a future to the young people of this country, to the people also here in Phola Park and throughout South Africa. But in order to do that, we need to understand our history. We need to know where we started. We need to know where the liberation struggle started. In 1912, the leaders of various black communities and African communities throughout South Africa gathered in Mangaung on the 8th of January 1912 in a small church, a Methodist church in Mangaung. And they made a commitment that they will work for the liberation of the people of this country. Pixley Ka Esaka Seme was one of the leaders of that group of leaders who came together, delivered a speech there. And he said, we as the people of South Africa must not any longer be Zulu or Xhosa or Sotho. We must be united to fight for our rights. We must be united in our fight against colonial oppression. And at the foundation of the speech that he made, he said, the land must be returned to the people. The land that had been stolen by the colonists at gunpoint from the indigenous people must become the wealth of our people. That is what our struggle is all about, comrades. That is what the struggle was originally all about for the African National Congress. If you read the early documents of the ANC, it was about the return of the land. And as time went on, and understanding that we must work together with the working class in this country, to create an economy that will be in the service of all the people of this country, everyone, and will indeed empower Black and especially African people. That is what the commitment was when the Youth League was formed in 1948. And we had the leaders such as Comrade Oliver Tambo, Comrade Walter Sisulu, Comrade Nelson Mandela, all of them taking their leadership positions in that Youth League. They committed us to this national liberation struggle. Now, I joined the ANC when I was a young man of 19 years old. 43 years ago, I left the country and I went to Botswana and I joined there. I joined on the basis of that understanding that our country must be a liberated country where the land is returned to the people, where the economy is restructured so that the people will be in charge of their own lives, where jobs will be created, where there will be free, quality, equal education for everyone. That is why Comrade Mike joined the ANC. That is why Dr. Job Mohanede joined the ANC, and many other comrades. But sadly, comrades, when we eventually got to the point, because of the sacrifices also of the young people who rose up on the 16th of June 1976 and subsequently, who fought in the streets throughout South Africa, also here in Ekurhuleni, everywhere in the country, when they fought and died and were faced by bullets, by baton charges, by armored vehicles, they eventually brought the apartheid regime on its knees. And it was because of the efforts of the young people, more than anyone else, of the self-defense units who were fighting in the streets of our townships, that the ANC was eventually able to get unbanned, to come back to South Africa. But the sad thing, comrades, is that even in exile, there were already ANC leaders who were selling out. People who infiltrated the ANC in order to make sure that the true liberation ideals of the ANC will not be implemented when we eventually get to the point of having to sit down with the apartheid enemy and now negotiate the future of this country. And when that happened, we ended up with sellouts such as Cyril Ramaphosa coming in, taking control of the negotiations, and negotiating for us a constitution, which we have to acknowledge today was a compromised constitution. A constitution that did not address those original ideals of the African National Congress that I told you why the ANC was formed in 1912. The return of the land to the people. The return of the economy to the people. The creation of jobs. The strengthening of the people's hold on their own future. That is not what was negotiated during the Kudesa negotiations, which took place from 1991 to early 1994. Instead, we ended up with a compromised constitution. And we ended up with a tragedy that the land that should have been returned to the people was now guaranteed in terms of property rights to those white colonists who stole the land in the first place. Comrade Mike know what I always say at this point. I always say, when someone steals your car, Dr. Job, tell me, if someone steals your car, and you find out who that person is who stole the car, will you go to that person's house and take out your wallet and say, how much can I pay you to get my car back? That's rubbish, comrades. That's nonsense. But that is what was negotiated in the Constitution. The Constitution says if we take the land back, we must pay those who have stolen the land to get the land back. That is the essence, the crux of the sellout that happened. But of course, comrades, there were those of us in the ANC who were not happy with these negotiations, with this compromised constitution. We were not happy. But we said to each other, let's hope that once the ANC is voted into power, once we actually have an ANC government, we will be able to make changes to this constitution. We will be able to now, through those changes, bring the true ideals of full liberation to our people. There were those of us who believed the promises that we were making in the first elections on the 27th of April 1994, when we said we will give free equal education to all the youth, especially the black and African youth of South Africa. We will give full health care. We will give houses and security to everyone. We said, let us work. Let us work with our leaders. We will eventually achieve those objectives. But comrades, instead of seeing those objectives being achieved, we were confronted with a sellout leadership who were given the support of the people. During the time that Comrade Thabo Mbeki became the president, the people gave their support and the love to the ANC. They voted more than 2/3 of them for the African National Congress. Because of that 2/3 majority, Comrade Thabo and those leaders in government had all the power to change the constitution, to return the land to the people, to restructure our economy, to nationalize the South African Reserve Bank. But comrades, how much did they do? Dololo. Nothing. They betrayed the love and the trust of our people who voted for them. Instead, they cared more about what the white monopoly capitalists in this country were saying. Instead of listening to the love of the people who voted for them, who gave them a 2/3 majority, they were knocking on the doors of Rupert and of Oppenheimer, and were asking them, what should we do? They humiliated our nation. They turned us into a nation who asked from the white boss what must be done. And now, 30 years later, where are we? The highest unemployment in the world. The biggest unemployment figures for young people in the world. The highest crime rate for murder and for gender-based violence in the world. We are a failed nation. That's why I said yesterday, I need to apologize to the youth of this country. Because what we, also those of us who have been members of the ANC, had bequeathed on you is a tragedy. We failed you. But I said, comrades, we must understand this history. The history of how there were comrades who were infiltrated in the ANC to destroy our original liberation ideals. The history of comrades who, instead of serving the people, were making special deals with the white capitalists in order to fill their own pockets. We hear today that Cyril Ramaphosa is a multi-billionaire. But in 1993, when he was negotiating, he had not 2 cents to rub together. How did he get rich so quickly? What did he sell out in terms of our future to get that money? Why was the white monopoly capitalists and the imperialists pumping R1 billion into his election campaign in 2017 at the 54th National Conference of the ANC for him to buy the votes and to bribe his way into the presidency of the ANC? Because they knew that he's a sellout. They knew that he was their agent right from the beginning. And they knew that if they bought him into power, he will be able to do what they want to happen. And that is exactly what has been happening, comrades. Since Ramaphosa became president, what has been the future of our people? We are in darkness. The state-owned enterprises are destroyed and privatized. South African Airways, which was once the pride of our nation, was sold off for 51 rands. You can hardly buy a bread and a packet of chips and a coffee with 51 rands. But they bought the whole of SAA for 51 rands. While SAA, in terms of the value that it has, is calculated as an organization having value for 13.68 billion rand. So Praveen Gordhan and Cyril Ramaphosa handed 13.68 billion rand over to their friends for 51 rand. Now, comrades, that is the biggest amount of thievery, of crooking that you can imagine. These are thugs. These are not leaders. They are mafia. We can see what is happening with Eskom. Eskom is being destroyed. It is not automatic, comrades, that we should live in darkness, that there should be 8, 9, 10 hours of load shedding if you're lucky. Actually, if you live in a township, it's even for days without any power. It is done deliberately because Ramaphosa and Praveen Gordhan and their friends promised the Western European community and the United States that they will privatize Eskom. They will sell it off. And they know that the only way they can sell it off is first to destroy it. First to make the people feel we can allow you to do anything as long as eventually electricity will come back. But look at the tragedies, comrade, that play itself out. With this electricity being lost and power being lost. Look at what happened here in Phola Park, just down the road. Look at the tragedy of a family where the power went off. When there was a power surge, when it eventually came back on, a fire was started. We went there, Comrade Mike, Dr. Mohanedi, we went there to that family. And we saw the pain of a mother who has lost her only 2 children. A family that has lost everything. They don't even have clothes to wear. Everything is lost. Now let us understand it clearly, comrades. This is because of Cyril Ramaphosa. Let us give it a name. It is because of this failed ANC. This thing that still calls itself the ANC, but has become the agent of white monopoly capitalism and has sold out the people of this country. That fire in that shack, that house would not have happened if it wasn't for load shedding. A few weeks ago, Comrade Mike and I went across the border from Gauteng to the Free State. And we went to visit there in the township a young girl in Paris. A young girl's family who lost her. Because that young girl was injured in a shooting accident and now she was dependent on breathing on a machine, an oxygen machine. That oxygen machine was working on electricity. When the electricity failed, she suffocated. Her mother had to watch her die because of load shedding. When you go to the hospitals, and I'm sure Dr. Mohanedi can tell us, there are little babies that are born. They still have to be in an incubator. The electricity goes off. They die. There are old people who need machines to keep them alive. When the electricity goes off, they die. What we have today are murderers in government, killers who kill our people for the sake of them getting rich. And now the time has come for us to say, enough is enough. We put our foot down now. We draw the line now. This comes to an end now. ARETA has been formed to do exactly that. We've got a 10-point plan which says the land will be returned to the people. The state-owned enterprises, including Eskom, will not be privatized but will remain in the ownership of the state, in the ownership of the people. And they will create jobs for our young people so that it cannot be this situation. When I ask you who of you are working, you all say to me, we don't have jobs. We say that we must address the problem of illegal, undocumented foreigners. They can't just walk over our borders and come in here. Illegal, undocumented foreigners have to be deported to their countries of origin. And the borders must be strictly managed. We must get our police to do their jobs. The police force must now deal with the issue of serious crime, of murder, of rape, of gender-based violence. And those who are arrested must face the consequences. Can't be that they just go into jail today and tomorrow they walk out free. It can't be that they easily get parole. Those who are sentenced for serious crimes in some instances must, if they get a life sentence, stay in jail for life. We must protect our communities. We say that we must have a national call-up for young people. When young people are 18, let them join and be in a situation where the state give them for a year the opportunity to serve this country. But at the same time, train them so that they actually have skills which they can use when they come out of that year of national call-up and they can serve the communities, but they can also find jobs. We say that we must make sure that our relationship with Russia and with China and the other BRICS countries is good. That we can get also proper economic arrangements and deals with those countries. Russia has got a lot of gas and fuel. China has got much to share with us. We can bring down the price of fuel and also eventually the cost of electricity if we make proper deals with those BRICS nations. But instead of doing that, Ramaphosa is embarrassing us. He now says that he wants to implement the International Criminal Court's warrant of arrest against President Putin. He's even asking President Putin not to come to South Africa in August for the BRICS summit. Instead of making friends, he makes enemies. He alienates us. We are seen as weak. We are treated as the laughing stock of the world. The Americans and the Western Europeans think they can order us around because their man, their servant, their boy is here and they can tell him to do what they want and he will do it. So comrades, I want to thank you all for having come here today on a Saturday. I thank you for your commitment. I know that you made a sacrifice to come. I ask you to all join, if you haven't yet joined ARETA, to join ARETA. To make sure that you make ARETA the strongest political party here in Phola Park and throughout the whole of South Africa. Today we are going to appoint a leadership for this branch here in Phola Park in Ward 53. And we're going to make sure that this branch will grow. All of us must now dedicate ourselves to make sure that we will make sure that everyone in Phola Park will be registered as a voter. And that everyone next year, when the elections in 2024 come, will vote. And will vote right. Will vote for ARETA. And make sure that we remove this sellout ANC thing and bring in a progressive government that will return us to the ideals, the original ideals of our liberation struggle. Those ideals that I spoke about when I told you why the ANC was originally formed in 1912 in Mangaung. So comrades, thanks for your commitment. I wish the leadership who are going to be appointed as the branch leadership here in Ward 53, all of the best. We as a national and provincial leadership will stand behind you. Dr. Moganedi, I'm happy that you are here. And we are going to lean on you also as our fellow comrade, as our leader, to lead with us. All of us must join hands because we can change our own lives. We can create a better life for everyone. We can do all of that as long as we are committed and we adhere to a progressive program of the implementation of radical economic transformation for the sake of ourselves, but especially for the sakes of our children. Thank you for listening to me, comrades. Thank you for your courage to stand up and to be counted. Your legacy will be written in the history of this country through the change that you will help to bring to save our nation. Amandla! Viva ARETA, viva! Viva ARETA, viva! Viva ARETA, viva! A luta continua! A luta continua! Thank you, comrades. Over to you, Comrade Mike.